What is up, everybody? My name is Whooped. This is a film study going over a recent game I played against Phantom Race, and it went a little something like this.
Sometimes you can't even describe a play. There are no words.
Man, they give it to him on the jet sweep. Austin finds the space, and the burst of speed has him there. Touchdown.
4th and 1. A fake. Jackson, room, first down, touchdown. Mr. Liverpool fans will be pleased to see those two on the wavelength. And there is Lewis.
I mean, they're setting the bar pretty high and early.
That's got to go.
Oh my. Way gone.
There's a lot of talk in the Mechabellum community about how to counter Phantom Race, and I think one of the problems is a lot of units have direct counters.
Fine, I'll do it myself.
An example of this is placing down an Arclight to counter Mustangs, putting down a Scorpion to counter Sledges, or Missile Interceptors to counter Storms. Then you have units that require what I call composite counters.
We need to work together as a team.
They're more complex than direct counters because they require more than just one unit type. You need a layered response with synergy. An example of this is hackers. You need chaff to take the hacker's aggro. You need something with the high target rate like Mustangs to kill the hacked chaff. And then you need something with bite to kill the hackers. So it's like a three-pronged layered response. So part of the reason that you might be struggling with Phantom Race is because it falls into the composite category. At least that's what I used to think, but I may have found its direct counter. So my opponent is 1,861 MMR, and he is Missile Specialist with Mustangs and Crawlers. He goes ahead and drops Marksman. I'm Fortified Specialist with Steel Balls and Crawlers. I think Fortified Specialist is highly underrated. It's not a flashy pick by any means, but it does get the job done. In my last 50 games, I'm 5-0 with Fortified. 3 of them were against aggro, 2 of them were against standard. And I know many of you probably disagree with Fortified being really good, and maybe it just fits my playstyle, but I really like it. It's actually turned into my preferred choice of specialists. So I threw down Arclights because my opponent started with Crawlers and Mustangs, of course. And he has standard positioning on his units. So right now I'm not really sure what he's going to do. He could go with Fortress, Hacker, Melter. He can go with Marksman, Arclights, and Storms. You know, I really have no idea. I decided to skip. Right now I'm just building out my board because, again, I really don't know what his direction is. And so I'm just, going to continue to build it out and get more intel. I also decided to eat the missile. So I could have used, 100 here and 100 here to shield. I knew where he was going to hit us with the missile, most likely. But I decided not to do it, just eat it. I didn't feel like it was worth the cost. And part of that is because he does have Crawlers and Mustangs, and we have a lot of Arclights, so I didn't think this round was really in jeopardy. And yeah, it goes pretty well. So far, so good. We still have no idea what he's doing, though. I knew my opponent was going to go air. I decided to upgrade my Arclights anyway, because again, I'm trying to, build out the board. I went to Sabers because they have a lot of value. I almost picked the Fangs, especially because Wasps were a choice, and that would have helped me go against the Wasps, of course. But ultimately, I decided to take the Sabers. It's just a lot of bulkiness that my opponent doesn't really have the means to get through. And so I figured, hey, why not? Let's go ahead and do it. I dropped down 2 Marksmen, even though I felt like he was going to go Wasps. And the reason is because usually Wasps aren't a long-term play. They're more of like a short-term annoyance, if you will. And so I still didn't really know what my opponent was going to do. Like what his overall plan was. So I figured the best course of action was to continue to develop my board, but give myself at least something that can shoot up, and also had single target DPS. I did not think he was going to drop Phantom Race. That actually caught me off guard. I created a system, and I use a system called Cypher. And part of Cypher is integrating round-based solutions into the long-term plan. And so I had to weigh, how do I want to tackle the wasps while continuing to develop my board going forward. And ultimately, because I knew that they were most likely not going to be invested in and probably sold out in a couple rounds, I decided it'd be better to go with something else. And then kind of going back to the beginning where I put my marksman right next to the towers, I should have actually moved it further in so it wouldn't get hit by the missile. So that was a mistake on my part for sure. Also, him going Rays told us exactly what he wants to do now. So we know his direction. He's going to go air. Probably going to drop down more Rays just like he did. And I'm happy to oblige that, right? Now, I could have took Nano, but I didn't really have a unit that would take advantage of Nano. We could have gave it to a Saber maybe, but I just decided to go with the MP. And then ultimately I dropped Mustangs down and I dropped another marksman. Oh, it looks like my opponent is actually flanking from the side here. It's a good move. Now, the first thing I look at when the opponent has Phantom Rays is whether or not they have armor enhancement, which he does. And so I knew I wouldn't be able to counter the Phantom Rays with Mustangs, not in the traditional sense at least. And that is why I dropped down more marksmen. But the reason I dropped down Mustangs is because, one, we're going to make him spend the supplies on armor enhancement. We want him to go into armor enhancement. Two, it's going to help us with the wasps that are currently a problem. They're going to have some chaff clear capabilities, and they're going to act as chaff themselves. A lot of utility coming from the Mustangs. And then three, which is most important, I will tell you next round. So my opponent did a good job with the flank. The Mustangs had zero chance of defending against it. And I'm fully aware, so I want you guys to know, I'm fully aware of like the potential risks. I knew there's a good chance that I'm going to get flanked or that he's going to beat me with the wasps in general just because they are level 3 and I don't have anything that can really combat that. I'm weighing the long-term development of my board against trying to defend something so short-term. So my goal isn't necessarily to win the round, which we actually did, and I find that kind of funny. But my goal wasn't to win the round so much it was to minimize the damage and just continue to develop a board that's going to be really good in a couple rounds. So in round 5, I knew he was going to connect the oil with Incendiary Bomb. I knew he was going to light the whole thing on fire. We have, though, almost 4,300 HP to play around with, so my thought process was to use HP as a resource. And basically sacrifice this round. I knew for sure I would lose this round, but what I did is I added more Mustangs and I gave them Missile Interceptor. That is the reason I put Mustangs down last round. I had the plan of getting more Mustangs this round and giving a Missile Interceptor if he added more race, which he did. And so basically my plan is, if he can't hit anything with his Phantom Rays, then he won't be able to kill any of my units. So I'm going to put down Mustangs and Marksmen. The Mustangs are going to keep them in place, not let them hit anything, and then the Marksmen are going to finish them off. It's like a 1-2 punch. Nothing here I really need or want. I mean, intensive training is nice, but I really like that for Mustangs, but I'm not really concerned about leveling up the Mustangs right now because they're not DPS for me so much as they're just anti-missile and kind of chaff. So in something like this, you know, typically I would get range first on my marksman. Almost always I'll get range first, but in this particular case I actually ended up getting anti-air first. And the reason is because I needed them just basically for the extra damage. And then the added range you get from anti-air is just a bonus. I didn't need them for range first, specifically. And then I shielded the outside because I didn't want a situation in which he actually flanked, as well as hit our outside with the missile. And then I shielded the marksmen because they're the ones doing damage to the Phantom Ray, so I wanted to keep them around. And our economy is pretty good right now. And this is the round that I kind of feel like we're making our move. We set ourselves up pretty nicely for this spot. And he doesn't have a lot of abilities to clear, you know, a lot of our stuff in the front with fire because he used it last round. And so my plan basically was to hyper focus on shutting down the race. That's what it's doing. It's working out very well. So in this case, I'm not entirely sure what he's going to do, but I suspect that he's going to take the worms. Just because if you see worms, generally you take the worms. It's kind of how it works. And I end up putting down Mustangs, and I probably could go with something else besides Mustangs, but they also serve as chaff for me, which is good against worms, and they're still going to be good against rays. And so I figure, hey, you know, whatever, I'm going to drop 2 more. I still have a lot of HP, but that is an area maybe I could have done better in. And then I drop another Mustang just because he does obviously still have a lot of rays. I give my worms armor enhancement for the worm v worm battle, but also because he doesn't have EMP teched into anything, so it's going to help out with that. And I end up leveling up my steel balls and a saber because I'm anticipating the worm drop, so that'll help probably against the worm, give my other sandworms a chance. And a lot of the times people keep their worms together, and I like to split mine, which means I needed the added help, you know, for whatever side he put his additional worm on. I did not expect the Vulcans though, but I also wasn't surprised because usually when people are losing or it's trending that way, they like to throw down, you know, something like a Vulcan. It's a very common pick to throw down a Vulcan, especially with Incendiary Bomb. Although he didn't actually get Incendiary Bomb on his. But ultimately it didn't matter. I mean, we hard countered his race. You know, we hard countered it, and we were able to survive his pivot and take the game. Overall, I'll give myself a B. I thought about making it a B-, but I think a B is fair because I observed what my opponent was doing. I created a plan. I executed that plan pretty nicely, and it absolutely shut down the race. And I thought I did a good job at using HP as a resource and not overreacting to early abilities, not wasting money or damaging our economy. Our eyes stayed on the longer term prize, as they say. Where I fell short though, I might have been too hyper focused on shutting down the rays, and I didn't give enough consideration elsewhere, like to a worm pivot or the Vulcans, something like that. A stronger pivot into something else might have been difficult to respond to with what I have. And the worms and the Vulcan didn't actually end up doing much at all. And so I think that's the reason I gave myself a B ultimately, because we were able to overcome it. But I still feel like we weren't as well-rounded as we should have been. I have to be honest. So this one's a little bit difficult to dissect because of how well the plan did come together. I don't know if we did a really good job or if we left ourselves too exposed and our opponent really just didn't take advantage of it. So against opponents that are 1800 level or higher, we've defended against Phantom Rays with Marksman, Mustangs, Wraiths, Phoenix, Overlords, Melters, and more specifically Multi-Melters. And the point is, you know, there's a lot of units that can technically take on Rays, but in my opinion, it's more of a composite counter, with the DPS unit being the least impactful choice you make. Successfully defending Rays has more to do with chaff and chaff clear and your overall board just being better than it is about what unit you choose to kill the race with. That being said, I think anti-missile Mustangs are the closest thing to a direct counter that they actually have. Try it out, let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the content, consider liking and subscribing. I'm whooped. Thanks for watching.
This is Mechabellum, and it's going down.